All right, welcome. Today we're going to jump into a really fascinating part of Indian family law, marital separation. It's this legal option that lets a couple live apart without actually, tearing up the marriage certificate.
I mean, just think about that for a second. In a world where relationships can get complicated, the law actually gives you more options than just on or off. It offers a middle ground, a kind of legal pause button.
So let's kick things off by really getting a handle on this core idea. It's all about creating some space, pressing pause on certain marital duties, but, and this is important, it's fundamentally different from a divorce.
At its heart, separation basically means the duty to live together is put on hold. All those obligations that come with sharing a roof, they're suspended. And this is the absolute key here, the marriage itself, it's still legally on.
Yeah, and this is probably the most crucial takeaway. Even when you're legally separated, you are still husband and wife in the eyes of the law. You can't just go and remarry. That would be bigamy. If one person were to pass away, the other would still be their legal heir. That legal bond is very much intact.
So how does a couple actually do this? Well, the first path they can take is a private one. It's all done by mutual agreement, happening completely outside of a courtroom. It really just functions like a contract between two people.
The process is actually surprisingly simple. The couple decides they want to separate, they work together to draft a private agreement that lays out all the terms, they sign it, and then they start living apart. It's fast, it's private, and you totally avoid the publicity of a court battle.
So what actually goes into one of these agreements? Well, they can get pretty detailed. They often contain these specific promises, which the law calls covenants, that cover everything from financial support and child custody to how property gets divided. And they often include a very specific kind of clause.
One of those common clauses is a non-molestation agreement. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because what does the law actually mean by molestation here? It's not necessarily about physical harm. It has to be an act done with the specific intent to annoy someone. So, for example, just filing for divorce wouldn't count. But maybe filing claim after claim just to cause stress and misery, well, that could.
Okay, and this highlights a really key difference you'll find within Indian personal laws. For the most part, you can't have a prenup-style agreement that says, hey, if X happens in 5 years, we'll separate. That's generally seen as being against public policy. But under Muslim law, it's a different story. Certain agreements that set out terms for a future separation or divorce can actually be valid and enforceable.
All right, so that's the private agreement path. But what happens when you need to get the courts involved? Let's talk about the second route, the court-ordered or judicial separation. This is where things get a lot more formal and public.
So right off the bat, a judicial separation is not a private contract. It's a formal, official order from a court. A judge hands down a decree that legally frees the couple from their duty to live together.
And that's a huge difference. Because it's a court order. It's what's known as a judgment in rem. All that means is that the separation is now an officially recognized public fact. It's binding on everyone, not just a private deal between the two spouses.
So what does it take to get a judge to grant one of these? Well, the reasons or grounds are pretty serious. Under the Hindu Marriage Act, for instance, the reasons you can ask for a judicial separation are the very same fault-based grounds you would need to file for an actual divorce. We're talking adultery, cruelty, desertion, serious stuff.
Okay, so we've got these different options on the table, right? The private agreement, the court order, and then of course the big one, divorce. Let's stack them up side by side so we can really see what's what.
Okay, this table really breaks it all down. Let's just walk through it. First up, look at marriage status. For both types of separation, the marriage subsists. It keeps going. Only divorce terminates it. That directly affects whether you can remarry, which is a no for both separations. Then look at how it's done. A private contract versus a public court decree. And finally, reversibility. With a private agreement, you just start living together again to end it. With a judicial separation, you have to go back to court. And divorce? Well, that's final.
So you might be asking, why do these options even exist, right? I mean, if the reasons for a judicial separation are the same as for divorce, why not just go straight to divorce?
Well, the idea behind it, from a legal standpoint, is that separation is a less drastic, less final step. It's meant to be a cooling-off period. It gives the couple legal space from each other, but keeps the marriage itself alive, leaving that door open for a possible reconciliation down the line. But there's a catch. And here's the twist. Under the Hindu Marriage Act, If a couple gets a judicial separation decree and they don't get back together within 1 year, something new happens. That 1-year period of not living together itself becomes a brand new reason for either person to then go back to court and file for divorce. And that right there perfectly shows you the two-sided nature of this legal tool. While it's designed to give people a chance to reconcile, in reality, it can also work as a formal, legally recognized first step on the road to an eventual divorce. It basically puts a clock on the separation.
So that leaves us with this final, big question to chew on. Are these legal pauses, these separation tools, a genuine lifeline for marriages in trouble, giving couples a structured way to maybe work things out? Or are they, in practice, just a waiting room for divorce? Something to think about.